Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we're looking at the real grade 144 scale Gundam Mark II, which is one of my most liked Gundam designs. I really like the look of this Gundam, and that's kind of why we're looking at an actual Gundam model kit, a Gunpla if you will. The thing is, they didn't always have a robot Damashi version of this, believe it or not. And so I was talking to somebody about that, and he said he was going to get one of these and build it and send it to me, since he knew that I don't have time to build these guys because they take a ton of work. Now it's only about 5.5 inches tall to the very tallest part, but there's a ton of parts in this guy and a ton of work, and they take, for a person that builds these regularly, this guy would take 3 to 4 hours, I'm guessing. And so somebody like me, who, even though I'm dealing with action figures a lot, it would probably take me a little bit longer since I'm not so used to it. So I don't have time, especially when you consider the fact that all of these markings and stickers, I did do those. There's something like 300 stickers on this guy right now, and that took me a lot longer than I anticipated it taking. So I don't have time for that. So he got it, he sent it to me, he said I could do the stickers myself, which I wanted to, so that's cool. So thanks to Dale for that. That's why you guys are looking at this. That's why we're doing a model kit, or a Gunpla, instead of a robot Damashi. He sent it to me so that I could compare it to the robot Damashi, which I will do once I get it. So let's take a look at this guy. It's a really, really nice looking figure. Obviously they have more detail, not counting all the stickers. You don't even need those, and it still looks awesome. They look, as far as detail goes, they look better than the robot Damashi, but they are definitely a little bit more fragile, and parts tend to fall off a little bit more easily for the most part. So they're still obviously not an action figure like the robot Damashi are, but it's still essentially an action figure, so it's really cool. Let's go ahead and look at what he comes with first. You can see here he has his shield, so I'll pull that off and I will show you that. So he's got the shield, and that just pegs into his arm with this. We have a hinge on it, and then we have a swivel also, well, a ball peg, so it'll swivel and move around like that, so that's cool. And then the robot Damashi shields that are extendable tend to actually snap apart, and then you re-snap them down into lower space. This actually has a nice sliding feature, which is really cool, and it's just on that little rail right in there, so that's really cool. Another cool feature about this shield is you have these little pouches, or I'm not sure what those are actually, because they're not the ammo clip for either weapon, so I'm not sure what those are exactly, but we have those, which are removable. They just unpeg. And then we also have 2 extra ammo clips, or whatever they're called, for the rifle, and those just snap in right there. So that's pretty nifty that those are tucked away like that. Then of course we do have the rifle as an accessory, which has the side grip that folds down. It's got some different molded plastic pieces in there, colors, so that looks pretty cool. We have the foldable sight with the green sticker on there to make it look all shiny. And then we also have the removable magazine down here. So pretty cool. We have his bazooka, which you saw on the figure already, which has the hinged handle, and I can show you that once I get the arm out of the way. So the handle's hinged so that he can actually hold it over his shoulder. So that's pretty cool, and it has the removable ammo clip. There goes the figure. The removable ammo clip on the back, and we have a spare one of those also with this guy. So he's got 2 of those. So it's pretty cool, and it does come with stickers for the weapons, if you didn't notice. Those are all stickers, and that makes it pretty cool. Now the only problem with the weapons for this guy, for the guns anyway, is the hand that is made to hold only the guns. You have to take the fingers apart in order to get the gun grip in the hand, which is fine, but it's a very small piece, so you have to be very careful. But he does come with a gun gripping hand. It still does have the ball peg in it, so that's pretty good. Okay, so let's look at these hands here. Now these are the articulated hands. We have one for either side. They have a hinge for the wrist, a ball peg and a hinge. Then the thumb is articulated with a ball peg that connects it to the hand itself, and that'll move it all the way around as that ball peg will allow. Then there's also a hinge in the actual thumb. Now these are really tiny, so you have to be really careful, but there's a hinge in there. Then there's also a hinge on the index finger, which has its own ball peg, and these 3 have their ball peg, but this finger has a hinge. And then these fingers have a hinge. So technically these hands can hold all of the accessories just like the hands that are, or the hand that's molded for the gun. This will do it too. But they're not, it doesn't have that tight of a grip, so you have to use the pegs or the tabs that come on the weapon handle. So that'll go into that spot right there. Just tab that in, and you can close the hand around the grip. Let's see if I can do this on camera through the screen. There you go. So you can see the fingers fit everywhere nicely. It looks awesome. That's great. So we have an articulated hand like that for either side. Here's one right there, and that's how you're going to hold the beam sabers, which I will show you right here. So that'll tab into the hand just like that. And he does have two beam sabers. We have the hilt for either one stored on his backpack right up here. I'll talk about that now so that we can just get on with the accessories. So both of those just store up there. And then of course we have the blade part for either one, and it's a nice dark red, so that's pretty cool. But as you can see, he can hold the beam sabers with his articulated hands just fine due to that little tab. And if you want to, I guess it's not going to work. I was going to say you can get the thumb up to make it look like he's holding them kind of at an angle, but you can't really, so we're not going to worry about that. Then we also have a molded hand that's just an open pose for style. We call it a style hand. And then we have the two molded fist hands. So that's pretty cool. And then we have this piece, which goes on his crotch, which allows him to connect to a display stage. He will not connect to a stage 4 or stage 5 display stage. I don't think he will anyway. I can't figure out how he would. So you have to put this on, and then he'll connect to the stages that are made for Gundams. And then the last accessory, because I think I covered all the other ones. Oh, I didn't actually. So this one's also an accessory. You do not have to have it on his head, thankfully, because I don't really like it and it gets in the way. But this is the thing that goes on his head, and it's kind of like I think it's a radio. I don't remember. It's been forever since I actually watched this. I just like the design of the Gundam. So that's going to get in the way a lot, though. It's really bulky for his head, and it just tabs in. It's kind of tricky to line that up, but he's got a tab hole on either side of his head, and that goes in. Come on. Okay, we're just going to pop the head off so I can show you. Too many small little details. So you can see there the little tab hole, and then there's a tab on both sides of that, and you're just going to pry that apart with the head and tab it in place. So there's one accessory. This is not hinged, unfortunately, so that tends to get in the way of the backpack while it's on. So I don't usually like putting this piece on. Now we'll talk about the backpack. Then we'll talk about the very last accessory. So the backpack can come off if you want to, and it still looks fine without it. So there's that. And you can see on here we have this part, which is articulated with like a ball peg, so that'll move around, and it's also hinged. And you can see these cool pieces that have little wires in them and like a little weave going around them. Those are actual cloth and wire in there, so that's pretty cool. And we have those in a few other places, like in the backs of the knees, and there's some inside the legs there, and those are all there so that they move with the joints. And while we have the backpack off, I'll show you that the thrusters are all on ball pegs, so those are articulated. They're a little tricky to move without popping off, but they do move. Then you can see the backpack has those little hooks, so you're just going to put that in and then push it down a little bit, and it'll lock into place. So that's pretty cool. While we're looking at the back of the figure, I will show you that you can pull this down, and that gives you a place to store his bazooka. You have to watch out for the backpack a little bit, but then you just put the bazooka in there, if you can do it, and not be a doofus and not be able to do it. So there you go. You can store his bazooka back there. It's a little bulky, so I don't really like doing it, but you can do it. And then the last accessory is his little guy. Little tiny dude. You're supposed to paint him up. I'm not going to bother doing it because I don't really feel like it. But he's really tall, or really small, really tall. Almost only a half an inch tall. Actually, only a half if you don't count the base. Very, very tiny. Unfortunately, he doesn't fit in the cockpit, but you do get a cockpit on this figure, or in this figure. It's a little tricky to get to, but if you pry that open, and you can pull this out a little bit, you can see inside. Well, I guess you guys can't see inside. Maybe if I do it like this, and you can see down in there. I don't think you're going to be able to. Well, you can. There's a little bit of a cockpit in there. It's really just a chair, so it doesn't really serve much purpose, but it is there. So I guess that's a good thing if you want it to be there. All right, let's talk about the articulation of the figure. The neck itself goes forward and back, and then we have a ball peg that the head connects to. So without that extra piece connected to the head, we actually get a pretty good range of motion. Side to side, forward, back, up and down. You shouldn't have too much trouble posing this guy. He does technically have all the articulation you would want. Some of the joints work really well, some not so much. So we're going to talk about that in this part of the review. I'm going to put this back in here just because I think it looks better. So we'll fold those back. Now the shoulders have quite a good range of motion. What I'm going to do is pop off the shoulder pad to show you that. The shoulder pad connects like that, so it can technically rock back and forth a little bit, and it does have a hinge built into that piece also, so that means it'll move independent of the shoulder itself, so that's pretty good. The shoulder hinge is just a hinge right there and a swivel right there, but we also have a hinge back here, and this piece folds up with it to maintain the look of the figure, so that's pretty cool. And we can also pull this all the way out. It'll go even farther than that if you want it to, but you can pull it out like that to give him the butterfly joint, and that will work with the shoulder pad on there. It's just going to give you a little bit less range of motion. So let's push that in. You do have to be careful because these things are a lot more fragile than an actual action figure. Get back in there. So we'll put that back on and we'll see how far we can bring it out. So yeah, it still goes out pretty far. It's going to get in the way a little bit, but you can bring the arm across the chest a little bit that way and it's not so bad. So that's kind of good. And now for the ab crunch, we have kind of like the robot Damashi. It kind of tucks in on itself, but I don't know, it's not quite as good as I was expecting it to be. It does lean forward and back though. We get a waist twist and we get a little bit side to side. Then you can see those gray pieces in there. They kind of just flop around to move with the figure. So it's good enough, it's just not great. You can see there's a joint inside between these two blue pieces. And then there's one underneath the blue between the gray. And then there's one at the very bottom of the gray. So it's a little bit complex for not giving you that much range of motion, but it's not so bad. I mean, it looks good, and it probably gives you enough, so I'm okay with that. I do wish the waist twist gave you a little bit more, but it doesn't. So for the arms, we have our standard bicep swivel. We have a double jointed elbow that works really well. Looks nice, and it goes all the way up, and you can see it kind of separates as we're doing that, so it looks pretty cool. It's really nice engineering for the joints on most of the parts here. For the skirt, we have pretty much the standard ball peg for the front part of the skirt that you guys would be familiar with from Robot Damashi. For the side part of the skirt, we have a hinge actually, and then we also have a lateral hinge also that'll let it kind of rotate. So that's pretty nifty. I don't know, it still doesn't give you that much range of motion because the side skirt kind of bumps up against the gray parts. So again, it's kind of good engineering, but then it doesn't really do that much, so I don't know. Then we have a hinge on the back flap also. While we're here, we can look at the hips. The hips have a rotation or a swivel, and that's because they just peg in. And these fall out a lot. They don't snap in, so they're going to come out a lot, so you have to be careful with that. Now while this is out, I can mention, I think this piece here is supposed to swing down, but mine, it won't move. So maybe it's not supposed to do that. Maybe it's stuck. I'm not sure. Since I didn't build it, I can't really speak to that too much. So that might be a thing. It might not. I don't know. So anyway, for the hip, we have that rotation right there. And then, of course, we have the side kick rotation. So we can get the leg all the way out to the side. Really no problem. We can bring the leg almost all the way up. But that's really as far as it's going to go. Now for the knee, it's a really nice knee design because it doesn't get ugly at all. That still looks good when you just move the bottom part. Then when you move the top part, the thigh actually splits. This top piece pulls forward a little bit, and it keeps a really nice flow to the whole knee and still gives them really nice range of motion. So I do appreciate engineering like that. And I'm pretty sure from what I've seen, the Robot Damashi figure of this guy has a horrible knee design. So I appreciate this one even more, knowing that they did a better job with that. Now for the ankle, I'm not 100% sure on all that's going on in here, but we're going to try to cover it. One of the things is we have these little fake pistons in here that actually do tuck in on themselves when you move the ankle, so that's pretty cool. Now we can move forward and back like this, and that slides this piece up and down just a little bit, but it does. And then this piece can move also. It's connected all the way back here, so this piece can go forward and back when it's not bumping up against everything. There's a whole lot to these guys. It's kind of hard to show you on camera. So, I don't know. If you're familiar with the Gunpla, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you're not, at least you'll get an idea of what all goes into this. So the toe can hinge all the way down. It doesn't hinge nearly as far forward or up as I would like. That's about it. And then you can bring the ankle forward, but it's still fairly limited without disconnecting stuff. So you're going to have to be a little bit careful with that instead of just pulling it apart. But it does go down. And you have the moving parts again, so that's pretty cool. And then hopefully, I guess I can't really show you, but this piece here can move forward. The ankle cover can move forward and back. And then it also hinges. But it's kind of, well, maybe from this, yeah, there we go. I can show you from here. I should have just done that in the first place. So that can go all the way back or all the way forward and help you that way. So it's got a ton of articulation. Unfortunately, a lot of it just doesn't work that well, so it's a little disappointing, but it's still a really awesome figure, and if you're a Mark II fan, then this is probably one you should have. And then, like I said, there's just so many stickers and awesome details to this guy. I can't imagine anybody not being happy with it. It's a really sharp looking figure. I'm really excited to look at the robot Damashi version of it, because I think it'll be a nice comparison. And there goes one of the legs, so that is an issue. And that's one of the reasons why I don't do the Gunpla. Just, I like action figures. I don't like model kits that fall apart. But it is a really cool figure, so I will post some photos here at the end so you can see what it looks like. And thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see my upcoming figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.